in the days of 2G to a leadership in the days of 6G. India is driving change globally. This topic today heralds the phenomenal impact across various sectors worldwide, with India in the forefront, be it the entertainment, manufacturing, smart cities, or any other industry we speak about. We are fueling innovation, committing to the norms globally, leading globalization and standards and significant opportunities across the industries. With the intersection of 5G, IoT, and merging of physical and digital realms holds a lot of opportunities as well as a global challenge, while driving exponential growth, managing the resource crunch globally. In this session, we bring across dignitaries whose organizations or who are driving this change as the forefront leaders in India and globally. To start with, I would request Mr. Sachin Katti, Senior VP and GM of Next Intel Corp, to lead the first session. To give a brief of Mr. Sachin Katti is a distinguished professional in the technology and telecommunication industry. He works as an SVP and a GM in the Next Group at Intel Corp. He has an illustrated career experience of 15 plus years globally. He has been consistently demonstrating exceptional leaderships across cutting-edge technologies. He has a visionary approach of next-generation networking technologies in 5G, Edge, and IoT. His contributions has left a mark in the industry. He has been regarded as a thought leader in the forefront of innovation in network and edge computing at Intel. His extensive experience and evidence shows that his commitment to pushing boundaries of technologies with a profound impact in shaping the future of networking and edge solutions. Prior to Intel, he served as a vice president of telco and edge strategy at VMware, where he defined both product and technology vision. Mr. Sachin Katti is also a professor of electrical engineering and computer science at Stanford. He is also co-chair of the technical steering committee of ORAN Alliance and was founding director of Extran Foundation, which built a network AI platform to monitor and optimize networks and applications. He previously co-founded Kumu Networks, which commercializes breakthrough research from his lab on full duplex radios. Friends, giving a big hand, and let's hear him about his experience.
Thank you so much. Is this on? Yeah, all right. So it's great to be here. A lot of energy here as being introduced. I think I could sense the energy that's in this place and the transformation that's happening in India at the edge. We are hearing a lot of talk about how 5G and ORAN is happening in India. I think this is going to be the place where it's going to scale. This is the place where we're going to lead the world in making virtual RAN, cloud RAN, and ORAN happen. I think at the same time, the other revolution that's happening is at the edge, where a lot of industries are transforming. They are becoming more digitized, they are becoming more intelligent, and they're transforming how they do their day-to-day business. So what I'm going to talk about today is how we are approaching this at Intel, but more broadly, what should be the strategy we take as we make this transformation, both for telcos and at the edge. So let me first start by kind of what's the perspective at Intel? So what is Intel's mission? Our mission is to arm the world with these 5 superpowers, right? To build the semiconductors, to build the semiconductor manufacturing capacity, to arm the world's industries, to arm the world's folks, or people with these 5 superpowers, with sensing, the ability to see, hear, and sense anything in the world, be able to connect it with ubiquitous compute, whether it's your personal compute on your phones or your laptops, or whether it's all the compute infrastructure around you. Be able to connect all of this compute and sensors together so that they're all networked, they're not isolated. Bring a cloud to edge infrastructure so that you can actually collect and process all this data, and then finally, increasingly, arm you with artificial intelligence to make sense of all of this data to actually drive the intelligence and drive the automation around this world. So I think we're at the very, very early days of this transformation that's happening at the edge and in the network. And I think this is going to power a big change over the rest of the decade. And so that's really where network and edge at Intel sits. So that's the business I run at Intel. So roughly a $9 billion business for Intel spans the entire network infrastructure, all the way from networking infrastructure in the cloud, where you're really pushing the boundaries on what speeds you need to drive the network at, to the telco network. And this is obviously the center of gravity of this show. How do we actually make the world's network become more open, more virtualized, more disaggregated? That's the enterprise and 5G network side. And finally, the edge, or the Internet of Things. It has several different names, but all of these verticals that we think about, manufacturing, retail, healthcare, how do we digitize them? And I think the way we think about a mission in network and edge at Intel is, how do I make the world's infrastructure software-defined? Any piece of infrastructure, whether it's your network infrastructure, whether it's your cellular infrastructure, whether it's the physical infrastructure around you, all the places you go to shop, go to eat, go to get healthcare, how do I make all of this infrastructure software-defined? That's really the mission. Go from fixed function hardware to more general purpose compute platforms and define this infrastructure in software on top of it. Now, the question that I get asked is, why will this happen? Why will this world's edge infrastructure become software-defined? We like to use the phrase edge native, and by that we mean the software that's going to power all of this infrastructure is going to be native to the edge. It's not going to be something that's born in the cloud and we pull it out to the edge. It's actually going to be built ground up to be edge native. And we really think of it as 3 laws that are going to make this necessary. So the first one is the law of physics. Often, many of these applications need to be very close to the edge, because if they're too far out, the network may be too slow, maybe unreliable, or the latency may be too high for you to be able to deliver the kind of edge native experience that you need. The second is the law of economics. It's often too expensive to collect all of this data, push it back all the way to the cloud, do the processing, and get the answer back. You will want to move the compute to the data rather than move the data to the compute. So that's going to pull a lot of this software to the edge. And finally, the law of the land. I think increasingly we see government regulations around the world requiring data sovereignty, requiring privacy, requiring data protection. And once again, that means the processing, the compute on this data has to happen at the edge. So these 3 laws are really going to drive this edge native revolution. And in fact, I think with AI coming along, it's going to accelerate this, because AI is going to gravitate to where the data is being produced, which is going to be at the edge. And this shows up in the statistics. If you look at where data from an enterprise is being generated, I think many of these estimates change, but more than 3/4 of the data that an enterprise generates will be generated at the edge, and the prediction is that it will get processed outside the data center or the cloud, because the volume is too large. Right? When you're arming the infrastructure with so many cameras, so many sensors, so many radars, you cannot actually feasibly collect all of this raw data, push it back all the way, and process it. You will have to process it at the edge, and most of these workloads are going to also sit at the network edge. All of these networks that we're building will be armed with edge computing capabilities to actually drive a lot of this processing. Now, this is where I think the question you should be asking is, what do I do with all this, right? So when I build this edge computing infrastructure, I'm doing all of this processing. Why am I doing it? Many of these industries are doing it because they want to become more efficient. They want to drive more automation. They are faced with labor challenges around the world. They are faced with supply challenges due to inflation. They want to become a lot more automated, a lot more streamlined, right? So they want to leverage this software definition. They want to leverage AI to actually make this happen. And most of these edge workloads that we are now beginning to see, almost at least 1 out of every 2 of these deployments, they're talking to us about AI being the driving workload that's actually going to drive the transformation at the edge. So pretty big opportunity. These numbers vary on, frankly. I think no one really knows how big this opportunity is going to be. It's going to be a big growth area for all of us. Now, how do I actually bring this mainstream? I think at the edge, there's 2 things. One, you need the network, right? None of this is going to happen if we cannot deliver a secure and reliable networked way of doing this thing. And the second is you need to make the AI customized, but make it easy to be customized, because the edge is highly heterogeneous. It's very diverse. You can't just build one AI. You actually have to customize it to that particular customer, to that particular vertical, and make sure that it works for them, right? But this actually flies in the face, because when we try to do this, what we see is that most of these projects fail, right? So the network often does not deliver the reliability that you need, or it's very, very hard to actually customize that AI and to really drive the business value beyond just it being interesting and cool, to drive that business value for that end customer. So actually, when we looked at our data over the last 5 years, more than half of these AI projects actually end up failing, right? And if you look at why, I think it's really 3 buckets. One is that the infrastructure is highly heterogeneous, right? So it can have a variety of compute platforms with different amounts of processing power. It can be connected over a variety of network links, very unreliable, right? So that's the first piece. The data is the second one. Data often is sitting in silos. It's very hard to extract this data in every one of these industries. Often it's in the heads of these domain experts. So how do you actually extract that data? And finally, even if you could solve both of these challenges, how do you operationalize this? How do you actually deploy it and manage all of this infrastructure? Often ends up being a big challenge. So this is where I think we have to solve together as an industry a bunch of these challenges. How do you help all of these customers make sense of their data? It's sitting in all these silos. How do I standardize it? How do I make sense of it? How do I help them integrate the legacy infrastructure into this modern AI-driven infrastructure? Because you can't actually deploy them as greenfield. They're all brownfield environments. How do you secure it? Because everyone's concerned about what this is going to do to their data, what this is going to do to their infrastructure. And finally, how do you bring the whole ecosystem together, which is highly fragmented, to come and deliver solutions? Because ultimately, that's what matters. It's not about technology. It's about solutions that actually drive an outcome for the end customer. So that's really kind of where I'll end today. What we are kind of driving is really a platform approach to the edge. Similar to what happened in the cloud, we believe a similar platformization is beginning to happen at the edge. We will always continue to have diverse hardware and network connectivity at the bottom layer. That's inevitable at the edge because the edge is so diverse. But at the next 2 layers, at the infrastructure layer, actually making it easy to abstract the complexity of this hardware, make it easy to operate a highly distributed infrastructure with an infrastructure layer that makes it easy to manage a fleet of devices, secure them, connect them, and lifecycle manage them. And then the next layer really is AI, and how do I make it easy to deploy and integrate AI? It's not about creating one, because I think the creation and the training is going to happen in the cloud. But what's going to happen at the edge is taking those models that are trained in the cloud, but make it, optimize them, make it easy to deploy them, and then make it easy to fine-tune them as needs change at the edge, right? So that's going to be that AI layer, which is really targeted towards deployment. It's really targeted to the average developer who is not an AI developer, who is just building the next Java app or the next C app, but make it easy for them to integrate this AI into their application and deploy it and manage it at the edge. And finally, at the top, really build that ecosystem. No single company can do it on its own. I think at Intel, really, we believe in the power of the ecosystem that's built on top of these platforms. And I think most of the value is going to be in these vertical solutions. And that value is how this ecosystem is how we will deliver that value to that end customer. So that's really the approach we are beginning to take. Really looking forward to talking to all of you about where we are going and looking forward to a great conference here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for an insightful session. It was really an eye-opener for many of us. I'm sure many of us out here could take a lot of takeaways from the discussion. Thank you so much. Moving on, we have Mr. Varun Das, the head of product for consumer and B2B business of Airtel. Mr. Varun Das has an illustrative career. He is He has played a pivotal role in shaping the product vision and strategy for the company. With a career spanning of 16 plus years in the internet, digital media, and telecommunication industry, Varun has a global expertise gained with his work in the United States, Australia, and India. His journey in the industry has been marked with a series of key roles at renowned companies, notably at Marchex, a leading mobile advertising analytics company. He has held responsibility of leading the product and data strategies, showcasing his expertise in data-driven decision-making. In his previous experiences at giants like Microsoft, Condé Nast, Ericsson, and Optus have seen him take a lead of both product and network teams, further solidifying the prominence in the industry. At Airtel, Varun leads the crafting visions and strategies across diverse portfolio of consumer and B2B products. His efforts extend to build digital platforms and data products at scale aimed at driving growth and enhancing the customer experience of the vast clientele of over 360 million consumers, 3,000 plus enterprise businesses, and 1 million SMBs. His leadership and expertise is integral to Airtel's continued innovation and excellence in telecommunications and digital domain. Apart from this, Varun contributes to the industry by mentoring aspiring professionals and advises early-stage companies interested in entering the Indian market through Australia-India Innovation Network, a program that aims to drive more Australian tech startups in India. We welcome you, Varun. Please give him a round of applause. And request everyone to please maintain silence while the speaker speaks.
Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. I know it's an afternoon session, but it's good to see all of you here. We live in exciting times in this country. We've been in the middle of a digital revolution for the past few years. And I think we're at an inflection point where I think the problem we have to solve is how do we do more with less, and how do we drive innovation in an ecosystem like India. Over the last few years, there are two stories that have struck a very deep chord with me. And I'll talk about both of these. They're kind of examples of the opportunity we have and how technology can accelerate digital growth, democratize commerce and education in this country, right? The first is about, it's a very interesting story about Miss Angmo, who has a small little hotel in Leh. Prior to internet connectivity, she had no direct connect with her customers. She ran a business predominantly with word of mouth or by contacting customers on the phone. And with the extension of 4G into the region, she is today able to grow her business, list her business online, and actually interface with customers, which has worked well for her, her business, and her family. The second story is about connecting the children of Kargil. So in 2021, during the pandemic, when everything was locked down and children were doing online classes in most of the cities, the children of Kargil weren't going to school. And so with the help of the government, they had 12,000 odd tablets that were distributed to us. And our mission was to connect these kids at 3,000 feet with high-speed internet. And they were able to go to school, continue their education during that period, and have access to high-speed internet. And so if you look at this, this is the face of Rising India. This is the opportunity we have and the kind of innovation we can bring about to drive growth in this country and progress forward, right? And that brings us to a very important question to consider, right? We have an ambition to be a $5 trillion economy towards the end of this decade. And so how do we maximize growth through finite resources? And how do you do more with less? And in my opinion, that really powers innovation in this country. And so today, I'd like to share a few stories of what I believe is the power of the possible from my perspective, and how we are innovating in India. The first story really is about broadband connectivity in India, right? We have a vast country. One of the problems we needed to solve was how do you connect all parts of this country with high-speed internet in a limited amount of time and a finite amount of resources. And an idea that we all had was, how do you do this in partnership with the ecosystem, small businesses? And so an interesting model that, an Uber-like model is what we came up with, where we partnered with local cable operators in a region, in a city, to help connect homes with high-speed internet and fiber. So when this journey started, we were in about 100 cities in the country. And in just over a year, we were able to partner with local cable operators and get fiber connected to homes and serve 2 million customers in that period of time. And that really is the kind of innovative models that we should think about when it comes to growing digital infrastructure, when it comes to driving connectivity in the Indian ecosystem. The second revolution I think is going to happen in India is that factory floors are going to get much smarter and more efficient and cost-effective in the incoming time. And this story is about a young company based out of Bangalore that actually builds robots for factory floors, for ferrying loads on factory floors, right? And they use these robots where they not only map the 2D plan of a factory, but they use advanced 3D LiDAR technology, which allows these robots to have depth perception, right? And in the Indian context, it is so important because not all factory floors are perfect, and so these robots need to navigate seamlessly. With India's bet on 5G and IoT, we are able to provide integrated services for companies like this to manage these robots on the factory floors, right? And in the case of incident management, they can remotely diagnose the issues and fix them, which makes it a lot more efficient. And so when you think about industrial growth in India, 5G and IoT are a key player in making that happen. And coming to the last story, India has a lot of entrepreneurs. There's a lot of entrepreneurial energy in the country, both small business and large business. And one of the things you all know fuels this is access to credit, right? You would have read a lot of companies are coming up with innovative products on how to serve a lot of new-to-credit customers. These are customers who may not have a credit history, may be trying to apply for credit for the first time. And so they are models that are now being built, which are intelligent models on better understanding how to serve these customers and how to serve India and enable these entrepreneurs to be a part of the growth in India, right? And that kind of you'll see in the Indian ecosystem is where we are going. It also puts us in a position to better understand them. It puts us in a position we have the capability to understand risk better, leveraging the data we have to reduce the risk for organizations that lend. And these are the examples that, in my opinion, are really how we're beginning to innovate. If we think about working with a finite set of resources, this is an ecosystem which I believe strongly has the ability to rise and power India's digital future for the next decades to come. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Varun. Great case studies, great way of impacting people. Great to learn about this. Simple things help make lives better, right? So our next speaker, Mr. Gil Garcia, he's a senior director business lead of Wired and Wireless Communication Group of AMD. He is a distinguished professional with a remarkable career in the semiconductor industry. Currently serves as a business lead for AMD. Since 2016, he has made significant contributions to his role, taking added responsibilities within the wireless business, service provider, and channel and customer business development. His journey in the tech industry encompasses a wealth of experience, having worked with a wide array of cutting-edge technologies, including switch fabric, Ethernet, packet processing, and more. His role spanned across marketing, branding, strategic initiatives, M&A, business development, communication, market analysis, and network markets. Prior to his tenure in AMD, he held the position of Corporate Global Account Manager for the leading telecom account at Glintz, where his impact was substantial. Furthermore, his 19 years long tenure at IBM includes his strategic role as strategic marketing manager for IBM Microelectronics division as a testament of his deep knowledge and insights into the industry. His extensive experience in the enterprise data center telecom markets, along with his multifaceted skills in customer relationship, press relations, and communication planning makes him an invaluable asset for AMD. His presence in wired and wireless communication groups drives innovation and growth, making him a prominent figure in the semiconductor and technology sector. We welcome you, Mr. Gills, to this discussion. Please give him a round of applause.
Thank you for this introduction. So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gilles. So I have a small accent. I'm French. So you will have to bear with me. But first of all, thank you for the two previous speakers, because I think that the story they have talked about are very inspiring, especially on the Airtel side, showing how we can impact the life of the people. So I will take a slightly different approach in what we need for the digitization, especially in India, is what are the challenges that we are facing in India and that we have seen as AMD, as a company, a corporation, happening in India. So first of all is power. I mean, how can we deliver power-efficient network infrastructure, AI solutions, laptop solutions that can really go into places where you need to be very efficient in terms of power? Performance. You have seen several applications that nevertheless are low latency requirements, quite high bandwidth when you want to do remote education, remote medical checks. You need to have quite a large bandwidth because the data that will be exchanged will be quite important and sensitive information. Same thing, we talk about AI in the two previous presentations. In AI, one size does not fit all, meaning that if you want to do AI at the far edge, this is not the same technology that can be used for the edge or for the data center AI. So the key thing is to have a broad portfolio of AI technology that can scale, and scalability is critical, still taking into consideration performance and power. So last but not least, on these challenges for digitalization is innovation. How do you sustain innovation in order to make sure that you are continuing to invest and to provide technology solutions to the operators, to the system providers, to the ecosystem, and we'll talk more about the ecosystem, in order for them to deliver systems that are changing the life of the people. So if we are taking those challenges that I just mentioned, power, AI, scalability, innovation and performance, if you are taking those four challenges, let's look at from the market perspective and how those challenges apply to the different markets. And your presentation was right on what I wanted to address. So let's talk about robotics. Robotics is clearly a market that AMD is addressing from both aspects. One is AI. How do you have vision recognition for the robot to be able to understand where is he, not only 2D, 3D, but as well visual, if you are talking about the robot that are taking all the goods into a big supply chain environment. How do you have these? And you can recondition and reprogram those robots in order to be able to adapt to the supply chain requirement. So adaptability is something that AMD has been very strong from a technology perspective. Because AMD, we are a technology provider. We are not a system provider. We are not an operator. We are, in fact, two stages away from the operators. Between us and the operators, there is all the system providers. And so when we are talking about robotics, when we are talking about education, medical care, or healthcare, when we are talking about space, today, the rover, the US rover, which is in March, is powered by AMD. The way it has been able to be reprogrammed so often time during the past 6 years, it's because there is a technology which is adaptable inside and can be reprogrammed. Imagine what does that mean for healthcare, from robot, from space aspect, but as well from the 5G and 6G, because we talk about the infrastructure. How do you ensure that you have a secured infrastructure with the right power efficiency, the right security and performance? So all those markets are very important for the operators, and for the digitization that we are providing in order to have startups innovating with new apps, startups innovating with new systems or with new AI models. So all of these need to be based on a technology that can scale from laptop to edge to the data center to the 5G radios and in the future to the 6G radios. So all of those are things that AMD has been focusing on and is focusing on to make sure that we are delivering technologies that can make those challenges or that can address those challenges. Power efficiency. How can you bring AI capability into the laptop? We delivered new technology that are now in several laptops where people can do AI at the laptop level. Imagine what you can do for gaming. Imagine what you can do for Teams, Zoom, or all the video conferences that you are using. In order to put your avatar instead of my picture, I would like to be photoshopped more often, but that's too late for me. So, but imagine all the things you can do with those apps when you have the capability in your laptop. Gaming, all the Xbox, Sony, and all the gaming console are using AMD inside. So that's showing the flexibility, power efficiency, and scalability that we can have from small to big gaming console. So the point I want to make is, when we are talking about digitalization, we need to look at how to address the challenges that I discussed at the beginning. And how can we then deliver this technology for an ecosystem to address those challenges. AMD in India, it's around 10,000 employees. We recently made an announcement that we are investing 400 million additional to scale up our R&D. But if you're looking at, and if you are coming to the booth of AMD, you will see what Made in India means for us. Made in India means for us that we are providing a technology to an ecosystem of partners in India that can scale from laptop to servers to 5G radios to RAN radio access networks, all built in India and manufactured in India. So if you are coming to our booth, we have 9 4G and 5G radios that has been built, that are manufactured in India. Again, I can name Leica Wireless, C-Dot, VVDN, Resonus, HFCL, and I'm making probably another 3, Astrom. But come to the booth, you will see all of them. Same thing for the server. We have the first server made in India displayed in our booth. And all of these is to address the capabilities of India and to develop the India technology and the ecosystem, because this is how we are helping for the digitalization in India. Providing the right technology for the right application, and again, one size doesn't fit all. The robotic devices that we are using is different from the one you are using in the 5G radios, different from the one that you have to have from the medical care or the X-ray machines. So same thing for the AI. You would like to make sure that you have the right capabilities of AI focused on the workloads that you want to do at the different laptop to edge, even to the 5G radios. Very soon, you will see that AI is coming to the radios as well. So scalability, power efficiency, performance are critical to be able to address this digitalization in India. And AMD is very proud to be here today, first of all, to be part of this event, and to be able to discuss with all of you about your project and how we can help. Thank you very much.